Big idea number 2 is avoiding the Tower of Babel. This is common language, right? The old story in the Bible about the Tower of Babel and trying to build up to reach God and to strike against the hubris of man made it so that they couldn't communicate with each other, right? It ended the project. They were only able to get so far because they could no longer communicate with each other. So the beginning of wisdom, right, is the definition of terms, and that's what Socrates said. That's where you and your team need to start. For instance, the term lead generation. Even that is too broad. So for this teleseminar, we would even break that down. I'd say, well, who am I talking to? So if it's a marketing person, we're talking about marketing qualified leads, right? Those are leads that a marketing person would consider qualified. On the other side are sales qualified leads. And you'd love for that Venn diagram to just be one solid circle, but it's not. Sometimes there's very little crossover between what each side considers to be a good lead. And that's the importance of language. It's just about effective communication. And I get burned on this all the time. The last was a term. I was talking to a client, and we'd been talking about landing pages for so long that I was wasting time because I think of landing pages on websites as places where paid ads show up. So I take out a paid ad, I direct you to a page. That page is your landing page. For them, it was any page on the website. And both terms are correct, right? Anywhere you land is your landing page when you come to a website. But by us not communicating effectively that way, we were trying to build two completely different things. So we're back on track and making progress, but that close but not the same is what slows everything down, and speed is what you're after when you're trying to work with complex leads, right? Complex lead generation, trying to shorten that complex sales cycle. So start with identifying the marketing sales cycle terms. That's what I would do is, hey, marketing, how would you describe the marketing cycle? And then I'd even ask them, how would you describe the sales cycle? And get those things down. And then we go over to the sales side and we say the exact same things. How would you describe the marketing cycle, and how would you describe the sales cycle? The process that your customers go through. How many steps? What are they called? What separates someone from one step and another step? The process sounds painful as I throw it out, but it's really the most enjoyable part of most engagements because that's where healthy discussion takes place. Somebody says, oh, I've always used a 3-step sales process. And then somebody else says, well, you're crazy. It's 7 steps. Sandler has 7 steps. I forget what Sandler has, but this is how I learned. Getting everybody on the same page is the most important part. Salespeople are notoriously anti-confrontation when it comes to anything that relates to leads and compensation. And so my only advice there is encourage them to debate and come to a universal conclusion of what it means for your company. In my case, what is the Chambers Pivot Industries sales cycle look like and defined? What separates somebody from interest to whatever the next stage is? Here, I should probably have my sales cycle out in front of me. So I mentioned landing pages as a term that I just needed to clear up. As a consultant, the benefit for me is I'm really agnostic when it comes to these things. I am a stickler for the company being on the same page, but if marketing and sales have completely different ideas as to what mine are, I don't care. I need them to be on the same page because ultimately when I leave, they need to be better off, and that is one way to do it. So if the first big idea is know where you are today, the second big idea is avoid the Tower of Babel, get on the same page.